Hello and welcome to another edition of our morning program live on NTN. We're coming to you from the GIS Studios Command Center, Information Command Center, as the St. Lucia keeps watch over COVID-19. My name is Jessie Leonce. I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching on air, online, Facebook, YouTube, we'd like to welcome you on the go this morning. We thank you for making this your morning program. And if you're watching from home, from your office on cable channel 122, I'd like to thank you also. Residents in St. Lucia, St. Lucians in the diaspora, and well-wishers globally who are tuning in to keep abreast as to what's happening on island. We thank you and we appreciate hearing from you, deciding to hear from the government of St. Lucia for the updates. St. Lucia records 9 new cases of COVID-19. We have the details to that coming up in just a moment. The Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Chasney, heaps praise, lauds the St. Lucian public for their incredible conduct on the weekend. And also we have a veteran Caribbean diplomat lamenting the international expectation of debt payments by islands amid the pandemic. Do stay tuned for the duration of this program. We're talking about COVID-19 as well as other developments emerging from the government of St. Lucia today. It's raining outside, but we do hope that you are keeping safe wherever you are. If you're about to leave home, I'm sure by now you know you need to carry an umbrella with you. And most importantly, carry your mask. Ensure that you have some hand sanitizer on deck just in case you're in a situation where you don't have soap and water, you don't have access to a faucet, you can use hand sanitizer. And despite the rain, observe the 6-foot distance as much as possible today as with every day. Stay with us. You're watching the morning program live on GIS.
What does coronavirus have in common with love? Both are highly contagious. Spread love, not the virus. Like you, COVID-19 loves a lime. Beach, river, or fed. Coronavirus is like these people who track every lime just to invade. The best way to put off invaders? Cancel the lime. Spread love, not the virus. Keep you and your crew corona-free. Live to lime another day.
Together let us win this war. St. Lucia be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. This is the morning program live on NTN. We're coming to you from the GIS studios, bringing you the latest updates from the government of St. Lucia. In the last week, a week and a half or so, we have been registering an increase in cases on island of COVID-19. And just yesterday, we got word from the Department of Health and Wellness registering 9 additional cases here in St. Lucia. We now go to a statement by the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmont George, giving an update on these recent diagnoses.
Today, Monday, October 26, 2020, the Ministry of Health and Wellness received confirmation of 9 new cases of COVID-19. This brings the national number of cases diagnosed to date in country to 63. A total of 36 cases are currently active and isolated in care. 5 of the cases are female and 4 are male. Their ages range from 12 years to 55 years. These cases are from Vieux-Fort, Castries, and Gros-Islet districts. All of the cases were placed in quarantine after testing while awaiting results. A link has been established for 5 of the cases to individuals who had been diagnosed with the virus. Thus far, investigations continue into the link of the other cases. The new cases continue to be diagnosed and captured from a wider range of communities. This situation requires that we all need to constantly stick with the behaviors that can keep us at low risk. We need to keep ourselves on alert, particularly when we are in places where we are comfortable and where we have frequent contacts like our workplaces. I also take this opportunity to encourage us to look out for each other. Let's encourage each other to act responsibly to reduce our exposure to the virus. Anyone with respiratory symptoms like cough, fever, and sore throat should not be at work or in any public place. It is important that people who are unwell seek care promptly at the closest community respiratory clinic. The Ministry of Health, once again, we remind everyone to wash and sanitize your hands often throughout the day. Always wear a mask while in public. Maintain a separation of 6 feet from others while in public, which is about 2 arms length apart. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, as always, we will continue providing updates as new information becomes available.
So that statement there coming from the CMO, Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, on the 9 new cases that have been registered here in St. Lucia. The total number of cases that have been diagnosed so far in country to date is 63. The total number of cases that are currently active and are isolated in care at the respiratory hospital is 36. 5 of these cases are female and 4 are male. So please take note of this, and also the ages that are ranging from 12 to 55 years, and these cases coming from Vieux-Fort, Castries and the Gros-Islet districts. Please take note of this information. If you're from these areas, you have concerns, you are aware of somebody who may have been taken in for care due to COVID-19 and you perhaps interacted with them, it is important to go down to the community respiratory clinic and get assessed, get tested for this virus. Emerging from these recent cases, we did see memos being circulated in the public service, specifically in the Department of Health and Wellness. Further to the memo dated Friday 23rd, 2020, staff are requested to note the following. 3 of our team members have tested positive for the COVID-19 virus, 1 administrative officer and 2 physicians. Some of our team members are in isolation while others are in quarantine for the next 2 weeks. 3 outpatient clinics, as we did indicate earlier in a previous broadcast here on NTN, 3 of the outpatient clinics were suspended for 2 weeks, that is gynecology, orthopedics, and anesthesiology. And so the word from the Department of Health is that 3 of their team members have tested positive for the COVID-19 virus, and also emerging from the Department of Education, the Ministry of Education, Innovation, Gender Relations and Sustainable Development. Consequent to the pronouncements of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, please be informed that 1 of the staff members within the department has tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. So when you are going in and out of the Ministry of Education, Innovation, Gender Relations and Sustainable Development, and also the Department of Health and Wellness, we encourage you to go with caution. And if you do not have to, do not go, do not loiter at these ministries. Please ensure that you're going in for important work only, and ensure that you wear your mask as usual, but even ever more so, and they use hand sanitizer as much as possible. We're seeing that COVID-19 is beginning to impact our sectors, our ministries, more and more persons in our community, the confirmation of community spread, and we do hope that persons are taking note of this, the serious reality of things at this point in time. We heard from the heads of government, the Prime Minister, the Chief Medical Officer, that we need to be now more than ever careful now that community spread has been confirmed, and a very stern admonition on the part of the Honorable Prime Minister. In fact, at this point in time, he is commending the general public for their performance, I should say, this past weekend in terms of the Jeune Creole weekend. Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chasney has heaped praise on the St. Lucian public for what he deemed an incredible job in adhering to the COVID-19 protocols during a time that is traditionally known island-wide for this celebration. Honorable Chasney says he knows it was extremely difficult for nationals not to enjoy Jeune Creole on the weekend in the grand fashion of years past. Cancelling the cultural festivity, the Prime Minister noted, resulted in major revenue losses as well as dampened spirits due to restrictions that impeded socialization. And just to let you know that this situation is happening globally. Rites, religious events, traditional events the world over are being cancelled, much to the consternation and the disappointment of the general public in these areas, but it has had to happen for the safety of these populations across the globe. We now go to a clip from the Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chasney.
Knowing that we didn't have Carnival, and this was really an opportunity for us to have gotten out. It's sad that we found ourselves in this situation, and I don't even want to add up how much money was lost this weekend and how many persons were looking forward to selling their goods, but more importantly, the socialization that was going to take place. But I really want to thank all St. Lucians for adhering to the protocols, not making it overly difficult for the policemen, and not putting unnecessary pressure on the authorities.
That there from the Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chasney. St. Lucians were urged not to compromise their safety despite the temptation to gather and celebrate the annual calendar festival. The plea was particularly strong given that the island has recorded a total of, that is 18 and 9, 27 new cases in the span of 1 week. We now go to our second clip from the Honorable Prime Minister.
The new cases that we're getting, the good news, is that most of these cases are already in quarantine. So it tells us that the contact tracing and that the team at the contact tracing have been doing an outstanding job. And we're ahead of it, if I can say that. Ahead in that we understand who's been affected and putting the persons at the highest risk into a quarantine situation. Sadly, more than likely numbers are going to continue to rise. The fact that we have a hospital facility dedicated as a respiratory center is good news. The fact that we have over 85 doctors and nurses from Cuba here to augment our doctors and nurses is good news.
That from the Prime Minister Chasney. He also encouraged the St. Lucians to continue to wear their face masks, social distance, sanitize their hands in order to stay safe from COVID-19.
We can coexist. We can keep our doors open. We can be open for business. We can make sure that people who'd lost their jobs, they can get their jobs back. And this idea that it's either health or economics is not a fair comparison anymore. We need both. Clearly, we're always going to be more sensitive to the health side because we can't bring somebody's life back. But once we continue to do what we did this weekend, St. Lucia, we'll be fine. And I, amongst, I'm sure, a lot of other people are very proud to see how St. Lucians acted this weekend and how strong they're taking the recommendations of the CMO. We've got a great CMO, we have a great Ministry of Health, the contact tracers, great frontliners all throughout St. Lucia, but more importantly, we've got great citizens, and we can win this battle together. We can do this, and your government is fully behind you to try to do everything that we can to ensure that we see a recovery to our economy and that we continue to keep people very safe in our country.
That was Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chasney. And meantime, Chief Medical Officer, again, just going back to a previous statement from her, back on Thursday, Dr. Belmar George is advising everyone to limit their social movements as the number of COVID-19 cases continues to rise. The island has confirmed 63 cases so far on island, with the 36 active cases in isolation for care. We repeat that we hope that you're taking all precaution. The CMO says that the rapid rise in these cases has resource implications.
The countries of the Caribbean, from which no pandemic has ever originated, and from which no international financial crisis has ever begun, are among the most hardest hit. Already in many of our countries, a decade or
apologies for that. It just seems to have our wires crossed a little bit. But the Chief Medical Officer did indicate in that statement that there is a strain on the resources, the personal protective equipment that is required at this time, as the personnel go into the communities on a daily basis to conduct assessments and testing. testing equipment. The resources for testing is also the resources for testing is also going up in terms of the usage, the tests that have had to be conducted within the community so far. So please take note of the implications of, this increase in cases here on island and the extensive contact tracing efforts that go into it. It's costing the country, the government, a lot of money, but it is worth it at the same time because we're seeing that there is an effort to gradually contain the COVID-19 situation. As long as the novel coronavirus lives among any community of mankind, all mankind remains endangered. And that's the word from the veteran Caribbean diplomat, Sir Ronald Sanders. I believe you saw him earlier, Antigua and Barbuda's ambassador to the United States and the Organization of American States, OAS. Sir Ronald made the statement as he addressed the 50th General Assembly of the OAS. Sir Ronald noted that even the most powerful countries have been unable to stop the spread of the virus. Poor and vulnerable countries, he added, are already the first to suffer from the economic impact of COVID-19.
The countries of the Caribbean, from which no pandemic has ever originated, and from which no international financial crisis has ever begun, are among the most hardest hit. Already in many of our countries, a decade or more of economic growth and social development has been set back in 7 short months, and they cannot now attain the Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations. Unemployment has jumped dramatically, in some cases to 50%. Businesses have closed, some never to open their doors again. Savings have depleted. Poverty has increased. Malnutrition has returned. And so too has hunger and an increase in crime.
Sir Ronald observed that no trends are identifiable today, no programs or policy that offer hope of narrowing the gap between rich and poor, particularly as Caribbean nations are facing debt burdens.
And governments of small countries, unable to print money as governments in powerful countries do, cannot support the private sector, and they find it difficult to meet their own obligations. The international financial institutions, constrained by rules set by those who make their policies, deny concessional financing to small and vulnerable states on the basis of flawed criteria. The Paris Club demands payment of age-old debts, knowing fully well that states crippled by the effects of the pandemic are unable to pay. Yet, Mr. President, none will listen to the pleas for debt rescheduling and debt forgiveness, without which these nations could become basket cases with all the consequences that social and political instability will unleash. The pandemic has magnified inequalities, injustices, and unfairness.
That was the ambassador, Sir Ronald Sanders. He also commended the World Health Organization and the Pan American Health Organization for their commitment to the region and interventions in containing COVID-19 in the Caribbean. Well, we've so far heard from Sir Ronald Sanders. We've heard from the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Honorable Alan Chasney, as well as the Chief Medical Officer. As St. Lucia registers 9 more cases of COVID-19 here on island, 63 cases registered here on island to date, and 36 are currently isolated for care at the respiratory hospital. We do hope that you are playing your part at this time. Now that community spread has been confirmed, playing your part, the use of the mask, the use of hand sanitizer, observing the 6-foot distance between individuals and yourself, and overall just ensuring that you are alert to what is happening around you. We need to heighten our awareness. We need to look at what's happening around us at all times. And if not for our own general health and well-being, we're seeing the Royal St. Lucia Police Force is now enforcing the COVID legislation, COVID-19 legislation. So we do hope that as you go into town, you ensure that you carry at least your mask with you and observe the 6-foot distance. Emerging from these new cases, we have heard that the Department of Health and Wellness has 3 of their team members who tested positive. They're among 3 of these individuals. The new cases tested positive for COVID-19. And the staff are asked to note the following, that it's 1 administrative officer and 2 physicians. Some of the team members are in isolation while others are in quarantine for the next 2 weeks. And as we indicated earlier, 3 of the outpatient clinics at the Victoria Hospital, the Owen King EU Hospital, have been suspended for 2 weeks. That is the gynecology, the anesthesiology and orthopedics clinics. Only emergency surgeries will be performed. The administration department has scaled down its services at the hospital for the next 2 weeks, and as a result, all staff requesting administrative services must liaise with their respective supervisors, who will make arrangements. So that's administrative talk, really. But there is the admonition, and the administration is imploring individuals that there should not be any mingling or loitering in the lobbies, the corridors, the staff lounges, and other common areas. Staff are asked to report only to their respective workstation or their department. We're also hearing from the Department of Education that consequent to the pronouncements of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, please be informed that 1 of our staff members have tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. And so everyone is alert that this COVID-19 situation is touching us in a different way. And I hope individuals are responding in a different way if they have not as yet, ensuring that they adhere to the infection prevention guidelines. Stay with us. When we come back, we have more news.
Cette lisi ka registre vermin corona ek I ka fait mouvement ek an chay vitesse tan chaque canef ka kouye pour vigilance publique la fait wolo parler en place publique kon bon lanme base ti boutique changer distance sociale 6 pieds Hod yon a lot, I ka travay tan, si ou santi ko pa cordial, quarantine ko, pas en contact et puis lot, en cas ou te pe exposé. Si on est kouye, free 11 ou ben n'importe clinique yo pou. Les pays a dimi à clé, ça veut dire les supermarkets, pharmacies et puis ATM, yo accessible avant cette souhait. Pays à clé en plein, ça veut dire tout bagay fermé à 24 heures. Servi protocole comme sorti par bureau indication santé. Nous tout ensemble, ça sauver vermine corona. Si nous tous servi Jidla à toutes les.
Together let us win this war. Say we shall be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
Thank you so much for staying with us. This is the morning program live on NTN. We're coming to you from the Information Command Center from the GIS studios, bringing you the latest developments from the government of St. Lucia. And we continue to lead a headline with the COVID-19 situation. St. Lucia has recorded 9 additional cases of COVID-19. And so far we have 36 active cases at the respiratory hospital, and to date we have recorded 63 cases of COVID-19 here on island. The country has confirmed community spread so far, and we've seen cases coming from Crozele, Castries, Vieux Fort, Miku, and we do hope that you are taking precaution. We do hope that as you're going out and even in your office, I think that's something that needs to be spoken on. You know, we have our co-workers coming from different parts of the country into one area. And we do hope that from your cubicle and from your office space, wherever you are in the building, that you encourage persons around you to observe the protocols, observe the infection prevention guidelines as you are also. And it will help to protect each and every one of you. Yeah. We continue this morning, just veering away from the COVID-19 situation a little bit. The Ministry of Youth Development and Sports is collaborating with a major player in the sport of basketball to heighten and sharpen skills here on Ireland. We have a report from that ministry. Ryan O'Brien from the Information Unit reports.
An initiative to develop the sport of basketball in St. Lucia came up for discussion here recently as the Vice President of Organization, Culture and Inclusion of the Toronto Raptors, John Wiggins, met with a number of officials to look into the requirements that will be needed to allow this to happen. Wiggins, whose parents were born and raised in Grosley, said the discussion was a follow-up on an initiative started 5 years ago to see how young enthusiasts can get more interested in the sport and to bring more basketball exposure, teaching and development to the island. Crucial to achieving this is the aspect of infrastructure, and that includes the possibility of covering the VG Multipurpose Sports Complex and to bring it up to NBA standards.
The meeting was to find out where we are with laying the groundwork and how we figure out a way forward, how people are going to come together, both the ministry, the federation, myself, how we can set a foundation for the NBA to come in here and bring programming and enhance the infrastructure of basketball. It's a great sport. The kids love it here. And St. Lucia, the West Indies, and the Caribbean are being targeted as the next hub for basketball to grow throughout the world, especially by the NBA. So this was a follow-up to see where we're at and how do we move forward.
Kofi Dovor is the Director of Tropical Studio Designs and Architects. He was present for the discussions, which took place at a conference room at the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports.
It's very possible to cover the VG multipurpose court. The option that is being explored right now is to use a steel frame, almost like a factory shed, to make it simpler. The alternative of using the steel frame, with a truss covering, is to be able to gain large spans. Okay, so it's suitable for, sports arenas. Where we are now is that based on what the Vice President, Mr. John Wiggins, discussed in the meeting, is that may not necessarily meet the standards of NBA. So now what we want to do is revisit and look at how we can create a more desirable, setting, okay, that will, be okay with NBA. So, and it's a process that probably cannot be done in one go. So it has to be a phased approach. So what we're going to do is go back to the drawing board and look at how we can phase that and make it, possible.
Dover said all things being equal, the covering of the courts can be completed within 8 to 12 months from commencement of works. From the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, I'm Ryan O'Brien.
If it's a strong T. That report there from Ryan O'Brien from the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports. And finally, in our news for the 24-hour news cycle, we have St. Lucia bidding farewell to the outgoing High Commissioner, Her Excellency Marie Legault. His Excellency Sir Emmanuel Neville Snack hosted a ceremony for the diplomat at Government House recently. A send-off as heartwarming as St. Lucia-Canada relations. Government officials and members of the diplomatic corps gathered to honor departing High Commissioner, Her Excellency Marie Legault, for her transformative endeavors in St. Lucia on Canada's behalf. Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chasney expressed gratitude to the departing diplomat for her humane approach to the job.
Invaluable input goes into Canada's policy coming from your office, and I think that's the part that we're all going to miss, is the compassionate side that you've had, and your willingness to look past just being a diplomat, but being a humanitarian. So on that note, I want to say thank you. You're going to be missed, but hopefully it's au revoir, but not goodbye.
Honorable Sarah Flood-Bobra, Minister with responsibility for external affairs, highlighted notable initiatives during Her Excellency Legault's tenure. These include the establishment of a Canadian Visa Application Centre on Island, the school computer program, the first house project for at-risk women and children, and support amid the pandemic.
We were really heartened when we were trying to get quite a number of our St. Lucian citizens who were stranded in Canada to COVID, and you gave up space that was reserved for Canadians on the plane so St. Lucians could come.
The External Affairs Minister encouraged the outgoing ambassador to continue advocating for St. Lucia.
There is some unfinished business it would be remiss of me if I did not mention here, and that is the visa-free access that we used to enjoy, where St. Lucians were able to visit Canada without having to apply for a visa. As friends, we hate to ask for too much, but when we really have a true and solid friendship, we believe we can ask for the things we need. And we are sincerely hoping that you're being closer to capital, perhaps closer to Immigration Canada, perhaps where these decisions are made, that you will continue to remember and advocate for St. Lucia.
High Commissioner Legault reflected on some of the highlights of her time representing Canada in St. Lucia and reaffirmed Canada's commitment to the region.
We've worked on climate change and the crisis and the resilience, and you mentioned, Prime Minister, the SIDS issue, which is still ongoing. There's a lot of issues into that, and we will continue to work on that. It's by far not solved. Concessional financing, and you just mentioned the financing for development that Prime Minister Trudeau and Prime Minister Holness are working on, and we will continue to completely be engaged on that. Thank you for your support of the UNSC campaign, the United Nations Security Council seat campaign. We really appreciated that.
A token of appreciation was presented to Her Excellency Legault on behalf of the government and people of St. Lucia. For the Government Information Service, I am Jessie Leonce reporting. Well, that report there, adieu to the outgoing High Commissioner for Canada, Her Excellency Marie Legault, and we do wish her all the best in her future endeavors. We'd like to remind you that St. Lucia has recorded an additional 9 cases here on island, and we hope that you are doing your part to protect yourself and your family. We have 36 active cases. That is the highest number of cases by far that we've ever had being treated at the respiratory hospital. And we've to date recorded 63 cases of COVID-19 here on island. Of course, the resource constraints, we have extensive contact tracing that is ongoing with cases emerging from Grosley, Castries, Micoud, Vieux-Fort, and we hope that you're taking that into consideration. There's a lot of effort, a mammoth task of tracing and tracking the individuals and the contacts. And so take that into consideration and do your small part, using a hand sanitizer, wearing a mask, observing the 6-foot distance. All of these things go a long way in mitigating the risk of transmission here on island. We are on alert. Community spread has been confirmed by the officials. Do your part. Do stay tuned. When we come back, we speak to the Storytell her Bootcamp organizers, that is Girls of a Feather. We speak to Ms. Chelsea Foster, the founder of that organization, as well as a sponsor, Lucia. Of course, I have some additional questions for Lucia, especially coming off of the Electricity Assistance Program recently launched. So stay with us. We'll have more right after this break.
We got this. Yeah. I feel make it. Ooh. We don't have no other choice but to be strong.
We're gonna make it.
I am a voice of hope, and I just wanna let you know that I believe in our strength as a people and the promise of a bright tomorrow.
And I want you to believe and trust,
and nobody's watching over us. And I believe if we all come together now, everything will be alright. keep distance. Everyone looking out for their neighbor. Islands in the Caribbean sun.
It's time to be strong, the battle is on.
For the future of each generation. Every daughter and son united as one.
Sing on, Caribbean.
Don't worry about your circumstances. Don't stress about the fears and the nightmares. Together we will take our chance at life and conquer it. Don't worry about your circumstances.
Must come.
Don't stress about the fears and the nightmares. Together we will take our chance.
No stress.
We got this. We got this. We got this. We got this. Oh yeah, we got this. We got this. Yeah, we got this.
Hear me? Rough it tough, the dirty enough, still have to get up. Hold firm in at the giddy and we have to stand up. As virus a rush, we still can't touch, we still can't crush it. We have faith, hope, strength, protection, and the Almighty.
And we prayed up, yes, yes, we prayed up. And we stayed up, yes, yes, we stayed up. Head high full of confidence, we not keep bucket, tell them we never gave up. Big up essential workers, rest in peace, we fallen soldiers. Corona can't conquer, we West Indies, one love and unity. Don't worry about the circumstances. Don't worry, no. Don't stress about the fears and the madness. Together we will take our chance at life. We got this. We got this. We got this. We got this.
Thank you so much for staying with us. This is the morning program. We are live from the Information Command Center at NTN, on NTN from the GIS studios. We'd like to thank you so much for tuning in. And if you've been watching so far from the beginning of the program, we've been going over the 24-hour stories from the 24-hour news cycle. We're looking at the new cases emerging of COVID-19 here on island. 36 cases at the respiratory hospital, 63 total confirmed cases here on island to date. We hope you're doing your part. At this point in time, we want to come away from the pandemic news to speak on Storytell Her Bootcamp. And that is an activity that had happened for the summer for adolescent girls here on island, organized by mentorship organization Girls of a Feather here on island. And with that, I'd like to welcome the founder, Chelsea Foster, as well as representing the sponsor of the event, for Lucia. We have the communications officer. My head is spinning.
And facilitator.
Yeah, so we have also the facilitator. I don't want to forget that, Miss Carmi Joseph. Special good morning to you both. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Wonderful. First of all, tell us about the Storyteller Bootcamp. What is it all about? What transpired? Give us the rundown.
Okay, so the Girls of a Feather Storyteller Bootcamp was curated to... We knew that International Day of the Girl was coming up. It's an event that's celebrated every year to amplify the voices of young girls and to speak about their rights and what we need to do as a society to support them. So we knew that this event was coming up and we really wanted to highlight it. So given that the pandemic was kind of putting a strain on, I think, everyone's sort of mental health, particularly the girls that we work with. They were at home all the time. They're stressed with school. They have so much work to do. We thought it would be nice to kind of get the focus away from everything that was happening around them, and let's see something that can spark their creativity while also aligning with our goals and really ensuring that their voices are heard in the midst of this pandemic, but also in general how they feel and the stories they want to tell out of this experience. So we decided to put together this boot camp that took place from the 31st of August to the 17th of September. And we organized or contacted a group of creatives and storytellers from around the region. We had one from Trinidad, we had one from Barbados, we had 7 in total. We focused on journalism, creative writing, filmmaking, and art. So they were grouped according to the areas of interest, and for those 3 weeks, they would go through a series of workshops where they would deliver one huge project where we showcased it for International Day of the Girl 2 weeks ago.
Wonderful. And one of the facilitators, we had communications, that was PR and journalism being one of the aspects. And you facilitated, Carmi. Tell us about that experience for you and the girls.
It was amazing. When Chelsea contacted me, first of all, I was wondering how my name came up in the pool, because you know that I haven't actually been in the world of journalism for about 8 years. So that was a very pleasant surprise. And it was good because I had wanted to get involved in working with young girls and I always want to spread the business of journalism and public relations and the right way to do it, because it's not just a career for me. I feel very passionately about these two fields. So when she contacted me, the first thing I did was contact my manager, because I really wanted to do it. But my workload is always so extensive, but I wanted to make sure that I'd be able to do it, and I would have Lucia's blessing as well. And he was very excited about it. And we decided to use it as part of my volunteer efforts. So the whole idea being that I would be volunteering my time with the company to work on this project. So it was a good marriage between what I love to do and my job, which I also really care about, being a corporate communications officer for Lucia. And I was very nervous because I hadn't taught anybody for a very, very long time, back in the very, very early days of my life. I taught at the Forestier Combined, actually.
Nice.
For about a year when I just came out of A-level. So, and I loved that. But I mean, that was a long time ago. And I didn't know how old the girls were. I didn't know how much experience they had. And I was afraid that they'd be like, who is this? This is not Lovely and Amy or Jade Brown. I don't know who this person is. So that with all that in mind, I still went in there and I did the background, because you have to get prepared, right? Did a curriculum, tried to teach them about it, and I met them, and they were amazing. They're so open. They were so honest and earnest with their opinions and with the way that they accepted the coursework and me. And we had a really, really good time. And we learned from each other, which was very important, because in addition to teaching them about journalism and PR, we focused on your purpose. What do you want to be in this world? It's not just about a career or profession. You have to figure out who you are, what you want, and then that direction helps you find everything else. So we worked from there, because what I liked about the bootcamp is that it focused a lot on the girls being able to tell their story. How do you see yourself in the world? What do you want to contribute to the world? And I loved that philosophy of Chelsea's group, and the girls came to the training with that in mind. And I was able to help them explore that. In public relations, I asked them to do a press release about yourself. If you had to write about yourself, how would you sell yourself to the world? And in the journalism piece, we actually were able to talk about girls and the impact of females in jobs thought to be more male-oriented. Construction, police, and stuff like that. So it was able to bring it full circle for them, both as women and as girls becoming women as well. So it was good.
Wonderful. And Lucia sponsored the event. And just tell us about, the rationale behind throwing your support behind it.
Lucia is very committed to youth empowerment, as you know. We've already spent a lot of resources working with Our Boys Matter through other organizations like SSDF and CARE. But we never really got a chance to really partner with a group that focused on young girls and growing their competence and their confidence. I mean, it's something that, it's 3 women up on this panel right now, right? And there are so many females making contributions in St. Lucia, but for the most part, a lot of it is behind the scenes. And you don't get a lot of us who want to go out in the front to take that leadership position, although we are in the back making the leaders function and do their jobs and everything else.
We're the permanent secretaries.
Yes. So it is something. it starts with building confidence. And confidence comes from knowing who you are. And boot camps like this are very important because they take you through these exercises and you don't realize that along the way you're learning what I like, how I like to see things, how I express myself. Being able to express yourself is critical in being able to be heard and understood. And Lucia, like we love that aspect of it. And we also like the idea of celebrating International Day of the Girl Child. Women are not only marginalized, but they suffer the brunt of abuse, economic neglect, social neglect, and being able to contribute in any small way to making that less or better in St. Lucia is something that we really could not pass up.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, just going back to you, Chelsea, speak to us about what inspired the creation of Girls of a Feather.
I think, let me just say that Kami did such an amazing job. I just have to say that before we kind of go into that.
She was the only facilitator at the closing ceremony.
She was the only one at the closing ceremony who could make it. Yes. I have to add that because a few others they just had some other things to deal with at the time. But she was the only one who showed up and showed out because she was the only one, I should add, that did the entire 3 weeks. Nice. Every single day. Some of the facilitators would come in every other day or once a week. We switched around, but Kami was a lone trooper and she did the entire thing for her journalism group and they loved her. And I think that is exactly what we wanted the outcome of the bootcamp to be, to foster these relationships, lasting relationships. And that's kind of why I created the organization, because like Kami was saying, she says that's her babies. I call them Kami's angels. Whenever we introduce young girls to mentors, you will hear after the activity that, you know, I've seen this young girl, I remember her, Chelsea, we met this lady, I remember at the camp and whatever. And they maintain relationships with these people. And I think this is exactly what the bootcamp was intended to do. I don't think this will be the last of Kami working with Girls of a Feather and hopefully Lucia. But yeah, that was what inspired me to start the organization back in 2014. We did our first Beauty with Brains camp and the camp where we targeted adolescent young girls between 12 to 17, where we did something similar. We introduced them to different women. We speak about different issues, whether it's building a career in male-dominated fields, learning about sexual reproductive health, learning self-defense, learning your rights, different things we do with them. And I also wanted to ensure that we incorporate some level of advocacy and talking about feminism, talking about girls' rights and women's rights, and how we can empower young girls to speak up for themselves, in these times. So it was definitely an influence from the women in my family, friends around me, who encouraged me and supported the effort to start the group. And from since there, we have just continued going and growing, and we're getting stronger. And there's so much more we want to come out of this organization and continue working with society and girls. Yeah.
Well, talk to us about your background, because people would be curious naturally did you go to school for this, to work in the community? What is your background?
I have no background in social work, youth development, nothing like that. When I started the group, and I think people were very hesitant, people were skeptical, and I can understand that. I was fresh out of A-level, I just started university, I was doing my first degree in tourism management. I started a group while I was in Trinidad. So I'm working from Trinidad, trying to coordinate events, have my sisters running around, my friends volunteering to do this, that, and the third. But it was a passion project, and it was, like everyone says, my baby. And I saw the potential of the organization and the impact it was having on girls, because when we did the first camp in 2014, the girls wanted to start their school clubs. That was how they wanted to continue, the work that we were doing. So I have a background in tourism management, and I'm now doing my second degree in civil environmental engineering. But along the way, I've done courses in gender development. In 2017, I got a scholarship to do a short course in feminism and gender at the University of Cave Hill. where I got, an introduction to all of that. So I have some exposure, yes, and hopefully I'll continue learning and strengthening my skills. But yes, my background is in tourism and engineering now. No social work, no youth development, but we definitely have a great team, board of directors, and along the way I've had an amazing support system with advisors, persons like Bennett Charles, Christy Butcher, Velica Lawrence, who's with ProSafe. They were some of the key people who really helped me push the organization to where it is today. Nice. So I got the support along the way, and the help and the encouragement. So yeah, that's how the organization has grown.
A passion project.
A passion project, yes.
Okay. And impact, speaking of impact on the girls, speak to us about the Storytell Her Bootcamp, how the girls came in, what was their composure, what was their, temperament, as opposed to how they went out. I just want to note, though, that when I saw the videos of the girls doing their spoken word and so on, I don't know if you felt it, Carmi, but I felt that there was just a maturity, an unexpected maturity in the feelings and the awareness of these girls, because at that age, for me, there are a lot of things that I hadn't woken up to.
And the audience shared the same sentiment. Yeah. We got Kentilia Louis, who was the MC for the show. She wanted to interact with the audience and she wanted to get a feel and a feedback, and everybody was blown away. They were like, at this age, I was not this self-aware. I am so impressed by the work that came out of this. And you could tell by, you would look around, like Antilia said, you would look around and everyone was just in awe by the pieces that came out of it. And the level of, and the quality of work that they produced. It was really, really inspiring. And I mean, it was not intentionally supposed to be virtual. I know we're in the midst of a pandemic, but I still had faith that we wanted to try to do it in person, the entire thing. Though we still had 1 or 2 sessions, I think, for the technical part film. Yes. We got to come into the studio and get some support with the film guys, but that was definitely limited. But the virtual experience, I don't think it took away too much, Carmi. No, I think it still let the girls. Yes, and let me tell you, there were a lot of emotions in this project. Like the girls, they got so they really loved their facilitators. They got, when I say emotional, they were crying at the end. They didn't want to leave. They created group chats to stay connected with some of their teachers. It was really a beautiful moment to kind of witness. And I can tell you for sure that they really, really enjoyed each other's work and they enjoyed the experience. And it went beyond what we honestly were hoping to come out of it. So I'm very happy with that.
Wonderful. True. And going forward, what are the plans for Girls of a Feather coming off of this? Because you set a standard year by year.
We set a standard.
No, you have to trump the year before.
Oh, I know. I definitely want to do this boot camp again, because although we haven't put the projects out yet for the public, we want to make sure we put it out in a way that really shows what the effort that they put in. Yeah. And we want to put it out in a really amazing way. But we definitely want to do it again. In terms of what we have planned for the future, definitely a lot of exciting projects, because we are just transitioning to a full-time organization. We've just outsourced an office space. We're working on developing curriculums for our schools so that when we relaunch next year and we expand our clubs, that we do proper training and facilitation with the teachers and the students, so we have clubs going on. I don't want to say too much, but we have some we just actually got a grant from the Women's Voice and Leadership Project out of the Caribbean and the Equality Fund from Canada to embark on a 3-part research project on gender-responsive programs for girls in the juvenile justice system. So we'll be launching that within the next month or 2 as our first phase, and then that research will inform us in designing programs for girls who are in care and protection and in conflict with the law. So that's just one of the things that we plan to do, working directly with marginalized and vulnerable girls. and designing programs that meet their needs specifically.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but Carmen, it would be irresponsible of me if I didn't touch on the electricity assistance program. Where is Lucia at in collaboration with the Ministry of Equity on the rollout of that program?
Yes, you know that we signed the MOU for that program here a few weeks ago. And we actually put out a communique on our social media pages about it yesterday, because as you could imagine, we are getting a lot of interest from the general public. The Ministry of Equity are the ones who are actually going to select the Lucia customers who benefit from that program, getting $75 credit towards their electricity bills. And they are also the ones who are funding the program. Lucia is facilitating. In other words, we are being given the list of customers who are to be credited, and we do that, and we bill the Ministry of Equity. Just as a matter of information to let the public know that the people who are eligible for the program through the Ministry of Equity are the recipients of the Public Assistance Program, the Child Disability Grant, persons living with HIV and AIDS, and approved beneficiaries of the Income Support Program for non-contributors to the NIC. And if you want more information, you have to contact the Ministry of Equity at 468-5108.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. We're looking forward to the reopening of the Lucia office across the road.
You and me both. And actually, before we leave, I want to say something as well. I grew up in a very, very big family. A lot of cousins, uncles, aunts, in a very communal setting. So I know how important that is to help somebody define themselves and to be confident in their ability. And I think that's one of the things that Girls of a Feather showed. If you are exposed to as many things as possible when you were young, and you believe that you are loved and supported, you can accomplish anything. And I came out of the womb like this, they say, I don't know. But along the way, I've always been unafraid to take any jump because I knew that I had family and friends that would catch me. And I think that if you don't have it naturally through blood, it is vital that organizations like Girls of a Feather provide it, especially for young girls.
To help cultivate. Absolutely. And what a wonderful note to end off on. I'd like to thank you, Chelsea Foster, founder of Girls of a Feather, as well as Carmi Joseph, a corporate desk at the Lucia company. We'd like to thank you so much for watching. My name is Jessie Leon, signing off for now. Do stay alert. Keep heightened awareness. We have COVID-19 spreading, man. Wear your mask, use of hand sanitizer, observe the 6-foot distance. Signing off for now. Do stay tuned for more NTN programming. Cheers.